Why do men sometimes just stare at us instead of approaching women?
I'll give you the answer to this question in a second, but let's hear what American men, and I use the word men very loosely when it comes to American men. I prefer to call them artists formerly known as men. Let's what he has to say as an answer to that question.
Just stare instead of approaching because they're nervous. It's really nerve-wracking for a guy to walk up and come talk to a woman like yourself. Men have gotten worse.
Ugh. I mean, it's unbelievable that American men have devolved into this species that we had to create a new word for them. Simps. I mean, it's the putting a woman on a pedestal and thinking that she is the prize is the worst thing that a man can do to himself. And essentially, it is admitting that you're not worth anything as a man except for a compliment and money dispensing machine. All right, now let me tell you why men are actually not approaching anymore and not as much. And this is actually even happening here in Southeast Asia. Women, specifically Western women, are just not very pleasant to deal with. As a matter of fact, when I see Western women here, I just avoid them. They are NPCs, non-player characters. I know they're around sometimes, but I just avoid them. Talking and dealing and dating and screwing, Western women is just unpleasant, and most of the time you have to be this pathetic man or a simp in order to even approach and be treated as a human being by one. And again, I use that term very loosely. So men, especially good men, especially high-value men, have decided to just walk away. And some of us have decided to just move to a country like Thailand here, where women still are pleasant and feminine and traditional and family-oriented and so on, though that's changing as well. And I talked about it in other videos. But this is why. It's just no longer worth it. Men would much rather do their own thing, have hobbies, develop businesses, spend time with their friends and family, travel, and just use women for recreational purposes. That's what it just comes down to.
And have gotten worse at this as time has gone on. A lot more men used to approach in the past. A lot less men are doing that right now. In fact, over 50% of men, if you ask them that are single, have not approached a woman in the last year. You're single?
That warms my heart. That genuinely warms my heart, because men are finally getting smart, or the reality is making them smarter whether they like it or not. They just realize that approaching women a lot of times is a negative experience. And even if it isn't, like here in Thailand, it's very unlikely that you're going to have an unpleasant experience approaching a Thai girl. However, the result is most likely still going to be the same, where you're just going to waste your time talking to her or even taking her out. At the end of the day, the quality of specifically Western women and the experience of just chatting and talking to them is so low that it's just not worth it. And of course, there are tons and tons of women, Western women and women here in Southeast Asia, that are only looking at men as wallets. And those men who don't like being used as wallets are also see no value in approaching yet another woman who looks at them as a wallet. So the fact that the approaches are falling is a good thing, and that is going to be followed, and it's already happening with the dating apps. Women are just not getting as many matches, especially with the men that they want, or at least realize those men are no longer serious. And this is the only thing that is going to change what's happening with this clusterfuck of a dating universe that has been created, several years ago, and why everything's just kind of gone to hell.
And it's been a whole year since you've walked up to a woman and approached her. I think that's crazy, and you've said in your own...
That's not crazy. That's the crazy part is if you continue doing that, right? And expect some sort of better results, especially the way a lot of guys do it, especially the fact that a lot of guys don't even bother dressing up to be presentable, to walk up to a woman. I've said it so many times, guys, it's so easy to set yourselves apart if you just dress a little bit better. Most Western men dress like 11-year-old boys. The oversized t-shirt, shorts, socks and sandals and that this little thing, whatever that little purse is, that's not attractive. That is not masculine. If you just dress up a little bit better, you would already be winning over many other men.
Said in your own life, you would like more men to approach you, right?
Yeah. It doesn't mean that I'm always gonna, say yes every time, but
Here's the thing. Nobody expects these women to say yes, right? But when they say no, that's where the problem begins. The way they say no is what drives a lot of men to just stop trying, right? They're either very rude or they will say yes and you get the number and they never reply, and you guys know how, much of a waste of the time that is, waste of energy, gets a lot of guys' hopes up, and then therefore a lot of guys get disappointed and then therefore they just stop trying. So the problem is the way women react to men approaching them and the way they say no. For example, I have a great way to approach women where you essentially never get rejected. I always, start a conversation, never by giving them a compliment. And at some point, I basically say, hey, by any chance, do you have a boyfriend? Right? Now, that is a way of asking, hey, if I'm going to ask for your number, am I going to get it? Now, if a girl is not completely stupid, which has also been a problem lately, even if she doesn't have a boyfriend, but she doesn't want to give you your number, she's not attracted to you or whatever, she would just say, oh yeah, I totally have a boyfriend. And you'll be like, oh, okay, well, it was nice chatting with you. Off I go. Not rejected, right? There are some dumb women who would still not get with the program, but it's very rare. So the problem is the way how women reject men, and that's what drives men away.
I honestly admire the men who do approach me.
Yeah.
Because it happens so little. And even if I say...
See, again, warms my heart. It should happen very little nowadays. And it will continue until the tides would start turning. And that's where, there's some women who are talking about actually approaching men, themselves, which I don't really like. But a lot of women are now putting themselves in the situation, like you see a lot of videos how women go to Home Depot and, try to look lost in hopes to attract a man who would want to help them and start a conversation. Love that. But it is already starting. And this is, gentlemen, please participate. Please participate. Stop approaching women. And especially when you do approach them and they are not very nice to you, just basically walk away. Reject them before you have that bad experience. I've done it multiple times, even here in Thailand, when, I approach a girl and she's already kind of giving me attitude and not even maybe fully turned. I literally just walk away. Like, why waste my time with someone who's probably going to be more rude than she is being right now?
And if I say no to a date or something, sometimes I walk away and I'm like, why didn't I just say yes? Because I think about the confidence it took to ask me on a date.
Yeah, that happens a lot. And I've said it many times. Women, when it comes to dating, are the dumbest species on this planet. When it comes to choosing a mate, they're the dumbest. Because I've heard it from many women as well, where they want to say yes, and yet they say no. And then wonder why there are so many cats around now. This is something that's going to continue to be a problem, gentlemen.
Guys are getting out there and they have their ego. They worry about a lot of things. If you walk up and have a good interaction, even if that person is not interested in you, she will feel better after having talked to you. That a lot of guys are so worried about bothering others or embarrassing themselves or, getting rejected that they don't.
Here's the thing. This is a pathetic way to look at things by pathetic men, which unfortunately most American men are. And again, artists formerly known as men. How can I please a woman? How can I make this a pleasant experience for her? Don't mind me, I'm okay, I will deal with it, right? This is a horrible way to look at it. Here's how you should look at it. I am the prize. Now, before you say that, you need to be the prize. You need to have a good job, you need to be a good man, you need to have good habits, you need to not have all kinds of bullshit in your life, right? Be a good man. You don't need to be a millionaire, you don't need to be 6 foot. Be a good man. then you can come up to a woman and know that you're the prize. Because essentially, when you come up to a woman, you're essentially saying, hey, can I potentially change your life and take care of you and our future children for the rest of your life? Can I have that privilege? The privilege is all hers. And this is how we need to start treating women as we used to. Women are the ones who are getting the most out of relationships, right? Especially the traditional relationships, which should be the only relationships out there. So when you approach a girl, and this is always on the back of my mind, wow, she is so lucky. She's just about to meet a good man who can change her life for the rest of her life. That is the attitude that you should have. And that's why you will have a completely different attitude and therefore completely different reaction, and therefore you will end up with completely different women that you all end up, nowadays, and a lot of times turns into a disaster. This simpy way of thinking how she's the prize and you don't want to be bothering her and whatever, and I hope it's a good experience for her, that needs to be turned around. Until men stop being pussies and simps like this guy and have this mentality that the woman is the prize, nothing's going to change for you gentlemen. Nothing. It doesn't matter how these women behave, if there are good women out there, whether they're in Thailand or South America or the United States or Britain. It's not going to matter. If you're going to have this simpy attitude, you will always have the women who will take advantage of you, and you will never find happiness with a woman ever. This has to change, and as men, we have to call out these fucking simps because they've already ruined the dating for everybody, but we have to shame them. We have to point this out, and they get really unhappy. All of a sudden they get tough. How dare you call me a simp? But we have to call them out because this is what has ruined and will continue ruining dating moving forward. But let's listen to the last few words here.
See all of the positives that can occur.
Yeah, so that's another thing that he doesn't realize. And I mentioned this earlier. There are very few, if any, positives that can occur by approaching a girl, right? Either in real life or on dating apps. And that's another thing that I always preach, that listen, essentially it's the same thing. There's just no more difference. The results are the same. These are the same women, whether you try to match them on dating apps or approaching them in person. Same results, absolutely same results, because these are the same women and you guys are still the same men. Until we change, until we get rid of guys like this, and I don't mean get rid of them, change them, red pill them, show them that this is not good for them. And it's embarrassing to even say things like this. Until then, we're going to continue being in this dating crisis, both men and women. If you're a single guy and you're still dating, well, let me help you out when it comes to analyzing dating profiles. All you have to do is take snapshots of a dating profile of a girl you're interested in and upload it into this ChatGPT app called the Dating Profile Analyzer. It is free and it will give you all the green, yellow, and most importantly, red flags about that profile. You're welcome.